You are listening to Shaoni, Born from the Light, by Iowan, read by Kevin M. Connolly. Chapter 22, Into the Andolin. What if we could all join hands, unite these creating energies that we all feel living inside, and combine them to become one great energy field? And what if we sent this united energy out into the world, into the trouble spots, unconditionally? As soon as Aniola's hand touched his, the world around Shaoni suddenly changed. The boy looked around, utterly amazed. It was as if he had been projected into a parallel world, a world filled with colors and shapes. They weren't strictly defined shapes as we know them to be, though. No, these shapes looked like drops of water, or rather bubbles, ever-changing, growing larger and smaller, constantly changing in color, too. When they touched other bubbles, sometimes they blended, or split apart as microorganisms splitting themselves into two separate entities. Sometimes a bubble would gradually light up and become an almost uniform green, whilst another would grow more red, but always there was, within each of the shapes, a full spectrum of all the other colors, too. It was as if some invisible hand was constantly adding or withdrawing light. Shaoni couldn't see any bubbles that had only one color. Long before he got used to this display of ever-changing shapes and colors, Shaoni felt how once again Aniola touched his hand. Immediately, they were transported to another place. It was the same world, but another location, far from the place they were before. Yet Shaoni hadn't felt any movement in space, and no time seemed to have gone by either. Once again, he looked around. The colors were darker here, and there was much more red. Some areas were so dark that they looked almost black, as if there was no light falling onto them. Shaoni could feel that there was a fight going on. He could see how the bubbles were trying to bring back color into this place. A never-ending, constantly renewing of energy was being offered, healing every single moment of time. Shaoni was observing this so wondrous phenomenon. He could see how the light bubbles flew towards the dark spots with an offering of energy, of love, to a place that needed it. There was no feeling of judgment or condemning, just an offering of healing energy. Shaoni observed the play of the colors bringing light onto the darkened areas. He saw how unconditionally the healing energy was being offered, and he saw how unconditionally it was being refused. Something sort of blocked the energy that was being poured in. Something blocked the energy from flowing. Something blocked the light. Suddenly, Shaoni felt Aniola's presence within his own thoughts. It didn't frighten him. Shaoni understood that in this world, or rather at this level, that was how communication took place. "We are on the Andolin plane now, Shaoni," the feeling said in his head. "The world you see is a world just as real as ours. Actually, it is our world. It is the same world, only seen from a higher frequency. Both these worlds are totally interconnected. Whatever is done in the physical is immediately translated into this world, and vice versa." Shaoni understood that the place they were in now had to be one of the troubled places in the physical plane. As soon as the thought crystallized in his mind, he felt the wizard's answer. "Yes," Aniola said. This is one of the war zones in the physical world. Forces fighting, never wanting to see or understand the other's point of view. A continuous circle of inflicting pain is blocking all energies. That is what you see. The light on the Andalin level, however, will always be present and heal. It will heal unconditionally, for that is its essence. On this level, there is no judging. There can be no judging. Let me take you to another place. The thought had merely passed through Shaoni's head, and already they were once again in another place. The Andalin plane is not limited by the boundaries of time and space, my boy. He heard Aniola's voice in his head. Shaoni looked around. There were some darker spots here too, but they weren't as dark as they had been in the place they had just left. And the healing he saw was being done on a much more subtle level. "Where are we?" he thought, and immediately came the wizard's answer. "One of the places where for so long only hate has resided, where all people mistrusted each other, where different religions fought a cruel fight for dozens of years. Yet the light cannot lose the struggle. You see, my boy, the darkness you observe is not a state of being. It is merely the absence of light. Darkness is no more than the energy being prevented from flowing. Nothing, however, can stop the energy from healing, and the energy will always heal, just as it will always be." As soon as this last thought had been projected, Shaoni found himself back in his body, back in the physical world. He looked around at the world he knew so well. Even now, he could almost see the colored energy shapes, as light shapes living within the things he knew. Shaoni didn't utter a word. What he had just experienced had by far surpassed anything he had ever experienced before. He had gone into the world that words cannot describe. Later that evening, the wizard came up to the boy and said, "Tonight, my boy, just before falling asleep, go to your center and imagine. Imagine how, for all you have seen, the essence of it all is love. To fully experience this essence, the first thing you need to do is to awaken this energy in your heart. To do so, at night, whilst in bed, before falling asleep, or in the morning, just before getting up, put both your hands on your chest, the left one below the right. As you do, an energy will flow into your heart and open it up. You do not have to do anything in particular, nor expect anything to happen. Just do this little exercise and try to do it once a day at least. If you think this is too easy and therefore won't do it, realize that somewhere, very, very close to you, a tear will be shed for another chance missed." Shaoni understood. He already knew how the energies healed. Also, he knew that the energies were ever present, and he knew they were filled with love. Shaoni put his hands on his chest. "Good night, Aniola," he said. Thank you for enjoying this chapter of Shaoni, Born from the Light. To hear more of these stories, please visit www.shaoni.net/audio. If you prefer to receive all of these stories in print, visit www.shaoni.net/book.